Hey guys, thanks for joining me for another Silhouette Sunday video. In today's video, I'm going to be making some thank you cards, and I'm only going to be using my Silhouette. I'm not going to be doing any stamping, it's just going to be die cutting, which is definitely different for me because I generally do stamp, even if I make a card using my Silhouette. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and get started. First thing I'm going to do is draw a rectangle on my mat here, and I'm going to resize it to, I know it needs to be 5.5 inches wide, and, ooh, that's wrong. 5.5 inches wide by, I'm gonna say 3 3/4. I may end up changing my mind later, because I don't want it to be as tall as the card, this shaker panel. I just want it to be as wide as the card. And I'm gonna go ahead and select my text tool and type the word thanks. And I'm going to go ahead and make it bigger. Now, I think I want to use a different font, so I'm going to go ahead and double click it and highlight all of it. And this way I can flip through some font options and see what I want to use. I was thinking about Adele Basic, but you know what? I'm going to stick with Adele Basic. So the card's actually going to say thank you, so I can take that S off. And I'm going to actually distort this font a little bit just to make it a little bit bigger. Now, I'm also going to do a U, but I'm going to draw a box around everything, and I'm going to go ahead and align these so that they're center and middle. And then I'm going to right click and group this together so it stays all as one. And I may come back and ungroup it and move that thank up just a little bit, but for now I'm going to leave it as is. And then the other part of my sentiment is going to say you. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to highlight it and I'm going to change it to the font that I want to use. And I'm thinking maybe Lavendaria. Yeah, I might stick with that one. And I'm going to go ahead and select it. And this one I'm really going to mess with in terms of squishing and stretching. And squishing and stretching the fonts is one way to make them look different. If a font you picked isn't tall enough or isn't wide enough for your liking, this is one way to make it look different. But anyways, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead, right click and go to ungroup. And this is just so that I can move my letters next to each other using my arrow keys so I can weld this. So I'm going to move them in a little bit closer. That's a little too close. Then finally I'm going to draw a box around everything to connect it, and then I'm going to weld this together. And to weld, I can either go to this button down here where it looks like a rectangle against a square, and this is a weld button. Or I can right click and I can go down to weld. Oh, I don't have weld on this menu. I take that back. So no weld on that menu. There used to be a weld there. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and click weld. So this is going to be the U that's going to go glued somewhere right there when I assemble the card. So I'm going to go ahead and move this down, because I have a blue scrap of paper that I'm going to die cut across here for my U's, and then I'm going to fill up the top part with the thank shaker portion. So I'm going to go ahead and send this to the Silhouette, and I'll show you what it looks like assembled. Here are my two pieces that I've die cut, and I'm going to use some liquid glue to go ahead and adhere some acetate to the back of the rectangle that says thank. And I made sure to save the little dot that is the center of the A. You can see it sitting on my cutting mat up in the top left-hand corner. And I'm just going to set this aside so that it dries. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and attach the center portion that should be the A. Normally, I'm super cautious when I do this so I don't get fingerprints all over it, but I kind of figured it doesn't matter because I'm going to have to clean it up anyway. And using that same liquid adhesive, I went ahead and applied glue to the back of the U and attached it down to the front of the card as well. Because the acetate is actually on the back of the card, there's actually a little bit of a gap between the white cardstock and the plastic. So I'm going to use an acrylic block to weigh down the entire thing to make sure everything glues flat down. The pattern paper I'm using on this card is from the Americana 6x6 paper pad by, I believe, Pebbles. And these are 2 scraps of paper that I have left over. Because you're only going to see it at the top and the bottom of the card, I figured there was no point in wasting cardstock by covering the entire back portion of the card. So I just applied a little bit of tape runner adhesive and glued it down so that the pattern lines up on the top and the bottom. And then I trimmed the part that's hanging off the edge with just a pair of scissors. Now you could have this cut out by your silhouette as well, but for me it was just easier to use my paper snips with some scrap paper. When I first started making this card, I thought I was going to leave the background white, but I decided that I'd rather it be red. So using a scrap piece of red cardstock, I'm just going to cover the center portion of the card. And you can tell that this is totally a scrap because it doesn't reach the 2 edges of the card, but that's okay because my shaker portion or my front piece is going to go from edge to edge, so you'll never see it. To create a box that's going to become my shaker, I have some 3M dimensional adhesive that I double stacked up to make it thicker. And I'm just going to apply it around the edge of the card. And I'm setting all the sequins down in the center portion of the card. That way I can make sure I get that front panel on straight. So some of these sequins are by American Crafts, some are by Doris, some are from Cartwright, just a variety of places. Once the section looks pretty full, I go ahead and attach that front panel down. And I had to move the sequins around a little bit to get that panel down flat. And that was just because there's not a lot of clearance in between the back of the card and the front of the die cut piece that I'm placing down. So once it's adhered down firmly onto the card and everything's lined up straight, I'm going to take it and just shake it kind of hard to get the sequins to start moving around since they are stuck in the middle. So here's a quick look at the final product. A link to all the products that I used in this video will be linked in the description box down below. Thanks for watching.